Hey guys, here is Rainy and welcome to the lecture 2 of our Unreal Engine course. I'm really happy that we started the course by introducing a little bit about Unreal, and in this lecture we will go through our first C++ script. Mm, let's go through it. Okay, if you remember in last lecture, we create our first person template and we modified it by applying some materials for different objects in this scene. We create first a simple color material and then we create from this material some material instances and we applied it on different objects. Now I think it's a good time to talk a little bit about different objects or different classes that we can create in Unreal. First of all, I find out that we create this material folder inside the first person folder. Maybe it's not bad to move it directly inside the root of the contents folder. We press move here. Yeah, it's better now. It's more organized. And yeah, first of all, when you want to create one class, you have two options. Either you will choose the blueprint classes or you would like to create C++ classes. In this course, we will try to focus on C++ classes, but it's not bad to see what's the meaning of blueprints once by showing you some example. Just first of all, create a folder and call it blueprints. Yeah. Inside it, let's create only a test blueprint. Yeah. When you click on the blueprint, you will get some options for creation of the blueprint. First of all is actor. An actor is an object that can be placed or spawned in the world. If you want to get more detail, always when you hover the mouse on the icon of the actor here, you will get more detail. It has some main function like actors may contain a collection of actor components that we will discuss about this part later on. Whenever you go downward in this list, you will get more detail on one classes. For example, if you are used to other game engines like Unity, in there you have only simple C Sharp class that when you create that script, you have almost the empty class that you should write your own script. But in Unreal, you have several templates that help you to go faster into what you want exactly. For example, if you want to only have a simple object, you can create actor. But if you want to apply some controller on it or have some AI, artificial intelligence, over your objects, for example, it's an enemy that wants to follow you, it's better to use Pound. In this case, it will gives you by default some necessary libraries that you need for such these objects. The next one, the character, is a kind of pounce that has some additional properties like walk, jump, or fly that you need for the character, and so on. We will go through each one of them in the next lectures. But let's see, for example, what's the pawn here. Pawn is a base class of all actors that can be possessed by player or AI. It means pawn is a kind of actors. Okay, let's see what will happen if I click on the pawn. And I will call it just, we always name the blueprints by pp underscore underline pound, simple pound, because I will delete this class later. When you double click on it, absolutely the object new window for the object property will open. You can attach it to the top, and you see there is nothing almost in this screen. There is only this white sphere that is not any object, it's only an icon for this pound. You can attach different type of components to this main class by clicking on add components, and here you can select several objects or components or user-defined classes to attach to this object. For example, I can click on cube and add this cube to this object. But what's this cube? When you hover the mouse over it, you will see the cube is a static mesh component. It means, just let me delete this one, and when I click on add component, here I have another option called static mesh. I can create a static mesh, call it cube for example, and from the static mesh list I can select that cube or any other static mesh like the mesh that we created in the 3D software and imported here. Why it's important? Because when you want to write a C++ class, you can create this static mesh class and then assign a specific type of static mesh to it, or create placeholder that later on you can assign or change this static mesh. By clicking on compile, you can always click on this arrow and save on compile, and successful compile, usually save. And you press on compile, it's also saved this class. And you come into your content browser, you see the shape is already changed, it's a thumbnail of it, and when you drag and drop, you have these objects. It's really cool. We will use this technique in several places in our course. Okay, but it's blueprints. We are not going to use blueprint in this case. We have some specific content to use a blueprint, but here, not here. Let's remove it, and also I will remove this class because I do not need it. I would like to create a C++ class that creates exactly the similar one. But first of all, let's see what's our options for using the C++ in Unreal Engine. You can use either Visual Studio that comes in community version as a free. You can use it, and also you can install later on Visual Studio codes that I usually prefer. It's a very lightweight software that you can use, so common, and yeah, it has very cool design. Or in last year we had the opportunity to use the early preview of Rider for Unreal Engine. It has several beneficial points for you that I highly suggest to use it. You can go to their website and check some of their points, but generally when you want to use the C++ and absolutely Unreal, because Unreal uses several macros and you need good text suggestion for them, and I highly suggest to use the Rider in this case. Okay, if you install the Rider or any other IDEs, you can go to the edits, and inside the edit preferences there is a source code part, and here you can choose which IDE you are using. Here I choose Rider. The other one is only for the specific version of it, but if you choose a Rider, it will decide itself the latest one. Okay, and yeah, now we are ready to create our first class. In order to create class, you can click on add new, and here you have new C++ class option. Press on it. Okay, you have the same options that you had for blueprints. Here I would like to create again pound. I will select it, press next. It will ask for the name of this class. I will call it simple enemy. It will create our class in this path, but if you click on public, it will define two folders for you, one public and one private. In the public folder, it will save header files, and in private one it will save the C++ file. Header file will contains our declaration, and C++ file usually contains implementation of that methods or members. Press create class, and yeah, we should just wait for a moment that it creates everything that we need for this class. Don't worry about going into detail for each for the header file or C++ files. We will code through them step by step, but just follow this course. Yeah, we have lots of things to talk about it. Okay, you see that our code is already generated, and when you go here into the C++ classes in the content browser, you will see we have this public folder that contains our new class that we created. You can click on it or right click and press edit, or I usually used to go into the file and open your code editor. Okay, you will see Writer is open here. The default environment is something like this, that you have the navigation part or explorer part and the main code edit. You can open the games folder inside the first lecture and inside the source first lecture. Yeah, you will see here we have public and private folder, as we talked about it before. Usually I do not like to see these notifications here, or yeah, I will click on view mode doc unpin, that whenever I want I can minimize it automatically. Okay, let's just open the header file. Inside the header file you will see there are some lines of code that by default is created. They are related to the pound class that we select. As you see, the name of our class that is inherited from the main pound class. This A is Unreal naming convention, that everything that takes from the actor class will use the A at the start of it, and we should use it also inside our code. Usually press click on include to open the include and see them. And here is our C++ code that is related to that header file. For example, by default you have this method called beginPlay, that at the start of this object or at the start of the game, this method will be called, and you can do several things inside it. Or the tick method, that every frame this method will be called, and it's something like update method in Unity, and here is something like start method in Unity. Okay, then what we want to do to create the same thing that we created in Blueprint. First of all, we want to have an object and or maybe a placeholder for this object, and I would like to create it also as a public, that other classes can also use this member. Maybe later on we will change it to protected or private one, but let's start with public. You type here public, and what was the type of this object? As you remember, it's kind of a static mesh. Just type here static mesh component, and you will see there is a U static mesh component. this U at the start of the static mesh component is also the Unreal naming convention. We will go through it maybe in another lecture. How is the naming convention in Unreal? Just click on it. Inside the C++, we should give a reference to the pointer when we want to define an instance of class. In this case, you type star and then specify the name of this object that you are creating. We will call it maybe the enemy mesh. Okay, what does it call? Object member enemy mesh can be garbage collected at any time. And the suggestion for it means, yeah, it can make problem because it will called as garbage, and yeah, it will be removed during the games, and maybe we will get a null pointer somehow. It's better to define it as a U property. U properties is micro by Unreal that defines some properties for our components, and it gives us several good opportunities that we will see in the next lectures. Okay, we created object from U static mesh class. Then how we should assign something to it? Let's go to the C++ way. The best way is to press Alt and O. It's my default short key, but it's also a short key by Rider. It will automatically go to the C++ file of this header file. We would like to create an object from that class. In this case, we will go to the constructor of this class. As you see, the method that has exactly the same name as the name of our class is constructor. And here we will write enemy mesh create default subobject. As you remember, when we were in Blueprint, we add some component, and this one will do exactly the same. But we should define which class it should be, and it's U static mesh component. And then what's the name of this object? We'll call it exactly enemy mesh. Okay. Now we create it. Let's see what's happening. Always you can click on build here, that's faster, or press Ctrl+Shift+B, or you can also inside the Unreal Engine press on compile button. That will do the same trick. Okay, now it's built. We can now create blueprint from this C++ class. It's much easier to handle it through the blueprints. We'll go to blueprints and right click, create a new blueprint class. But instead of picking from these classes, we'll go to the all classes and we will select our class that we already created, simple enemy. We call it BP simple enemy. Let's open it. Wow, that's great. You can see we created blueprint class from our C++ class that contains this enemy mesh. But the problem is there is nothing here. The reason is the following. We should expose that parameter using that uProperty feature that we talked about it before. Let's go back to the writer, and here press Alt-O. Inside the uProperty you can define different options. That one of them is edit anywhere. It means you can edit this mesh components inside the blueprint anywhere. And we will define a category for it. Call it mesh. Let's build it. Yeah, this time it builds faster. When you return to Unreal and you select the enemy mesh, you can see all of the properties related to this enemy mesh will appear here. Now you can go to the static mesh option and select one of the mesh that is available. Now I will increase the size of this thumbnail to see them better. For example, here we can select cube. Yeah. And you can assign one of the materials that we already created. For example, this orange one. Very cool. Press on compile. It's better to attach it here. Now, when we drag and drop it, you will see you have this blueprint, this type of the blueprint of simple enemy, and its contents of this static mesh. However, before we finish for this lecture, I think it's not bad to know about this option, because usually I'm used to using the middlemost button for the pen inside the viewport. Just go to the, and if you are used to the inverted one, go to the editor preferences and type invert, and here you will see invert middlemost pen. Now it's much easier for me to handle it. Okay, I think it's enough for this lecture. I hope you enjoy it, and see you in next lecture.